Welcome to the Late to Church podcast. We are glad that you are joining us today. We're doing things a little different than we've done in the past. We've done Advent videos and Lent videos, but we are switching to kind of a new medium. We're going to do podcasts.
Yep.
And so this is going to be the launch of our podcast and the beginning of our Advent series. So we're going to do something new. Kira, what's our Advent series this year? What are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about Mary, which I think is something that people talk a lot about or try to avoid as much as possible. So we're going to try to hit that perfect medium.
Okay, perfect. And we're titling this Mary, Mother of God.
Yes.
Like a expletive from a captain or something on a boat, like Pirates of the Caribbean or something. Mary, Mother of God.
I did not think that that's why you wanted to call it that.
I don't know. I thought it'd be good.
Piratey. We're going with a piratey title.
So we're talking about Mary this year, and you had a pretty cool story that I think is a great way to kind of introduce this topic.
So I was teaching a catechesis class, so like a introduction to the faith class. And when I put the group together, I thought, these are all people that, like, they are all in, they want to become Christians, let's go. And then as we introduced ourselves, I realized there was actually a much wider range. And one person was like, I'm an atheist, but I'm really happy to be here. I want to learn about all of this stuff. And I have a lot of questions, and she always asked the best questions. And I did ask for her permission to share this anecdote. So we are talking through the creed. So the Apostles' Creed, like the statement of basic beliefs that Christians have. And I asked them, when you look through these different phrases, what sticks out to you? Do you have any questions? And she said, I have a question about Mary. Do Christians worship Mary? And I was co-teaching the class with our summer intern, and we kind of shared a glance, like, okay, how are we going to take this? It's a complicated question. So we're like, no, Christians don't worship Mary, but we really value her. She was the mother of Jesus, so she gave birth to Jesus, the Son of God, so like it's a big deal. We started kind of going down that rabbit trail, trying to make that distinction. We, hold her up, but she isn't God to us. And this woman interrupts a little bit and goes, okay, but why don't you worship Mary? She seems so awesome. She gave birth to Jesus, God. So shouldn't we kind of hold her up even? Like, why don't we have Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and Mary? She's like, I'm a feminist. Like, Mary seems really awesome. I think we should worship her too. And so then we ended up having this amazing conversation about Mary. And I realized that I think for me growing up, I don't know about you, but I think sometimes in the Protestant world, we got so scared of worshiping Mary that we just didn't talk about her at all. And then when I was in seminary, I was like, actually, she's really awesome. And looking through her story of saying yes to God and just getting to know more about who she was, I realized this is someone that we should value more than I think I have traditionally.
Yeah. So when she asked that question, you and the person you were co-teaching with shared a glance. And the reason you did is because it's kind of a loaded question in a way. Let's talk about why it's so loaded. Because, some people may have been raised with a very balanced view of Mary or don't even understand that their view of Mary may be controversial to others.
Right. So when I was kind of doing some prep for our conversation, one sentence summed it up really well, and I don't remember who said it this way, but they said basically the very high view of Mary started later than the Catholic Church would want to say and earlier than the Protestants would want to say. So we're both like, we don't know what to do with Mary. And part of it is, I think, there has been over history, this whole movement of really holding Mary up. And some Christians think people kind of went overboard with that. And then I think, overcorrected. So I think that's part of the controversy.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know when was it that kind of the beliefs about Mary started developing and becoming popular?
It's earlier than I forget the exact date, but it was earlier. Like, and part of it is, and this is what my friends who are Catholic or who have a very, very higher than I do view of Mary might say, that, you know, Mary was alive for a longer time than Jesus. She was there at his crucifixion. She was maybe part of, you know, helping the gospel writers write these accounts. Like, hey, put this story in, or, you know,
here's this song I wrote.
You know,
you should include that.
Yeah, this is a real banger. And so sometimes people will say, well, because we have these historical documents that were actually written so close to her lifetime, we can say some of these beliefs about her, these historical details, came out of people who actually knew her or knew the family.
Yeah.
But then there are other details where I'm like, I think if that was true and if it was important, it would have been included in Scripture.
Yeah. And maybe the important part of that is, you know, a helpful distinction of like, okay, you know, is this essential to the faith?
Yes.
Maybe, maybe not. And that's even a loaded,
Exactly.
you know, like different traditions do view your view of Mary as essential to your faith. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And, you know, I think part of the reason there's so much controversy and emotion around belief about Mary is because she is such a central part of God's plan for salvation of the world in a really, really cool way. So something, when I was in seminary, I kind of had a similar experience. I was raised in the Baptist tradition, and it wasn't that we didn't like Mary. We just didn't really talk about her. It's like there was no... it was just nothing.
Yeah.
And when I got to seminary and started reading church history, it was like my eyes were kind of open. Like, oh, there's a lot of literature written here, and some really beautiful, dense theological work done a long time ago that's worth considering. So let's talk about a pretty interesting word here called Theotokos. That's a Greek word. Theo means God. Theos. And then tokos is bearer.
Yeah, so she's like the God bearer.
The God bearer.
God bearer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that our baby is. Not our baby, sorry.
Yeah. Kira and I both have babies right now, but separately.
So I think part of what happened too with the Mary thing that I just want to add is this is something that I've done a little bit of research about during the Reformation, when people were trying to figure out what's the relationship between people who are alive and people who are dead. So, and part of the conversation with that is, what do you do with Christians who have died? Can you pray to them?
Yeah.
And so there's, in this history of the church, we have people praying to saints, asking saints to intercede for them. And Mary was one of the really big ones that people were asking for prayer from. And in the Reformation, there's kind of this schism of, when someone is dead, we want to make sure they're like kind of separate from us. And so there's different teachings and historical shifts that happen with that. And I think sometimes Mary got collapsed into some of that. But it's also so interesting to me that, like, think of all the other Bible stories that you grew up with and the saints in the Bible, like the heroes of the faith, that the stories you were raised on, like Samson, like such a hero of the faith. Then you read his story, there's a lot of...
Pretty complicated guy, actually.
Yeah. Whereas, like, Mary, she seemed to, like, do a pretty good job of...
Really not that complicated.
Not that, like, not perfect, but... in comparison to someone like Samson, you're like, why would I be raised on these stories to the exclusion of Mary?
Yeah.
And I think it's, again, that overcorrection. So.
For sure. Yeah. That's a good point about her getting lumped into the intercession of the saints, praying to saints, asking saints to pray for you.
And something that that's been helpful for me with friends who have talked to me about praying with saints is they're like, well, we actually believe that when you're a Christian, like, you die, but that's not the end of your story. And so you're still part of the church. And in the same way that I might ask my friend Sutton for prayer, I can ask my friend Mary for prayer. And it's not because I think that you or Mary replaced Jesus.
Yeah.
And so that's been something that's been helpful. I still haven't found myself always doing that, but it's a kind of another correction.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a helpful way of thinking about a tradition that maybe you're not comfortable with, and just having a very sympathetic view and just very generous view of what they're trying to do.
It's not that they have totally screwed up what it means to be a Christian.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that's how we think about other traditions or other denominations.
For sure. That's really good. So why do people make a big deal out of Mary? Why are we talking about this? What's even the purpose?
I mean, no one else gets to be the Theotokos. No one else gets to be the God bearer. After Mary, after Jesus's life and death and resurrection, in a way, we all become God bearers, which is really cool.
Wow. All right, say more about that. Pause. Say more about that.
So, like, after Pentecost, we are told as Christians that we are going to get this gift. Jesus tells his disciples, I'm going to go, but I'm going to give you this gift, the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit's going to dwell among you.
Yeah.
And so then, in a way, we all get to take on this same role of carrying God around with us.
In your body, your physical body. Yeah, that's really cool.
And then on top of that, you have, like, if you think of what happens when you take communion, that's like another layer of the same thing of now you are carrying Jesus in you every Sunday.
That's good. That's real. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And you just had your baby, and when this comes out, we will hopefully have had ours. And it's a really cool image of what that actually means. Because I think before being pregnant, I thought of it pretty abstractly.
Yeah.
And it was hard to separate out, like, what am I doing versus what is the Spirit of God doing in my life. And in being pregnant, you have a very real experience of carrying another being who has their own agency and yet is using you. And that's kind of what being a Christian is.
Yeah. I had a professor that, I guess he was a TA. He hadn't quite.
An instructor. And he was in a situation where he had to bring his infant to class. And he had his infant in like a carrier, but it was facing all of us. So the kid's just kind of like sitting there looking at us all. And his name was Jack. And we were talking about this very topic. And he brought up this really interesting point about when his child was born and he cut the umbilical cord. There was a moment where it was like, where does my wife end and where does my child begin? Cool.
And just like thinking about the way God would relate to Mary in that way is just, I mean, it could bring you to tears. It's beautiful. Yeah. And then to see that as an image about the way that God relates to all of us in a way of like, where do I begin?
Yeah.
And where does God begin? Where do I end?
Right.
It's interesting. Okay, I have a question. This may be a little personal, but how has being pregnant made you think about Mary? Or like, what is that? Tell me about that.
I feel just so much more amazed by her because I think, to go back to the earlier question of, now we can all be the Theotokos, now we can all be the God bearer, but there wasn't a precedent for that. So when Gabriel comes to talk to Mary, he is asking her to do something unimaginable, like something that no one would have ever thought was possible, especially in the Jewish world where so much of their history is trying to figure out, what does it look like for God to dwell among us? We're going to build the tabernacle. We're going to build the temple. We're going to try to mend this relationship through sacrifice. And now Gabriel is saying to Mary, you are an unwed woman in a society where this is taking on a huge risk for you, social disgrace. Like, for me, being pregnant has been amazing. Everyone's so excited for me. But for Mary, that was a huge risk for her to take on. And she says yes to it. And then she experiences, I don't know if Jesus came exactly on his due date, but, 9 months-ish of carrying God in her.
Yeah.
I just, it's pretty crazy. Being pregnant itself feels like a miracle. And for Mary to be going through that, and it just makes me feel emotional.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for you, I know you were not pregnant, but
Never been.
in a way, you can also relate to Joseph and I think all dads can, I'm participating in this, I'm caring for this woman. And Joseph is the patron saint of pregnant women because he was the protector of Mary, which is really beautiful. So you're participating in this story, and it's also something that is so specific to the woman and child.
Yeah.
My husband said to me the other day, she had put herself in an uncomfortable situation, and he said, I wish we could take turns.
Oh, nice.
It's
Trent's
so...
he's a good man.
He's a good man.
I'm not that holy. He's such a good man.
You never had that desire.
Nope.
You're Marley, I'm glad this is on you. So, yeah, I think part of why my sense or kind of understanding of Mary has changed is because I see her as this fully human person who said yes to God, which is something we're going to talk about next week. But for her to be this very young person carrying the Son of God, what an enormous responsibility. It's already an enormous responsibility to be pregnant and you're stressed about, did I eat the wrong thing? Whatever. And now you add the added layer of oh my goodness, did I do something wrong to the Son of God?
Yeah. That's really fascinating. I think something that struck me when Marley was pregnant, and we could see the baby move.
Yeah.
We could feel her kick. And I just remember thinking, this is how close God came to us. The nearness of God is this close to us. And just struck me in a whole new way. And, the reason we're talking about Mary at all is because Christ came that near to us.
Yeah.
And it's just it's so comforting to me, the lives that we live today, the things that we struggle with, the things that are going on in our lives matter to God because God has come that close to us and God desires to be that near to us.
And to the point that he is impacted like a mother with a pregnant woman is he's impacted by what we are doing. I got a flu shot today and we're asking the nurse about how this protects the baby, and my body is going to build antibodies that are then passed on to the baby in my womb so that when she's born, she is protected. And so you have this really integrated relationship where God didn't have to do it that way. And it's so it's just baffling that he would make himself that vulnerable. He didn't have to. He could have, came on scene as a 33-year-old and got it all done. But he chose to enter into the human story the way that all humans begin their lives, in the womb.
I mean, and it's so cool how integrated it is to the stuff of every single person's life. We were all babies at one point. Every single one of us was born, and we went through, being raised up, and God decided that that's how salvation was going to come into the world.
Yeah.
And that's the type of relationship that God wants, fully integrated into our stories. And we find that our stories are actually fully integrated into this larger narrative.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I find it very compelling. One of the most compelling things about Christianity to me.
I think so too.
Okay, so let's center us on a text real
Great,
quick.
let's do it.
So this is from John 1, verse 14. And just, this is really kind of saying what we've already been said, but let's just kind of anchor it here. So it says, "And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory as of the only Son of the Father, full of grace and truth." And the Word became flesh here. Word is capitalized here. It's referring to Jesus. And it's the Greek word logos, which I'm sure Dr. Moolman Pettit can tell us more about what that means, but it's referring to Jesus at this point. So Jesus became flesh and dwelt among us. And then I'm going to hop down one verse to verse 16. And it says, "From his fullness we have received grace upon grace." So not only has God come near to us, is dwelling with us, we've received something. We've received the fullness of God, this grace upon grace. I find that very beautiful.
Yeah. And it's tying us to the beginning of creation. And so every time someone is born, it's also, I think, it feels like a mini moment of creation. But you're getting that reference back all the way to Genesis of God has been here and has been dwelling among us in a way, and now he has become someone we can touch, someone that's enfleshed like we are.
Yeah.
Which is, again, like, it's something that other religions have hints of things like this, but it's never, to me, it's not as compelling because there isn't that vulnerability and love that marks what it means to be a Christian.
It's really good. That's really, really good. Well, I'm excited about this series. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I think this is a good intro conversation. I'm excited. The next two conversations are going to be really, really fun. And, the reason we're talking about it in this season of Advent is to prepare us for Christmas and to prepare for Christ coming again, to the fullness of God dwelling with us and perfecting all things that are so broken right now. And I think this is a great way to prepare our hearts for that.
Great.
All right. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.